Welcome to this episode of The Martial Truth, Facing the Blade. Probably one of the scariest things you can do in a self-defense situation is face somebody that's armed with a knife or some type of edged weapon. As a police officer in New York City, there was a time when virtually every criminal we arrested had some type of edged weapon on them. And you might say, well, what type of edged weapons? Oh, we saw everything. Obviously, even implements you don't think of as edged weapons, like hypodermic needles and also crack pipes. A lot of times they're sharp. Obviously, they can do damage, serious damage, and they can also give you diseases that you don't want to get. But the knives varied from, a better quality knife to most of the knives being not very good quality. Wide range of sizes. I mean, the box cutter was a big thing. They love to use the box cutter. Kind of a flimsy weapon, but it can slice you. So still very dangerous and can kill you. For a long time, we were dealing with a lot of guys armed with edged weapons. And luckily, most of the time, they didn't try to use those edged weapons against us. I know there's the old logic of, well, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Well, if you don't have time to bring your gun into play, you better have some type of knife self-defense available to you that you can use. So let's talk about a couple of things as martial artists. First off, most of the knife defense I see is against a very static situation. Person's coming in with one attack, and they kind of stand there. It's not a dynamic attack. Okay. For the beginner, that's fine. And I teach that way in my dojo again. For the beginner, person comes in with the lunge. They work the technique. Okay. Person comes in with the ice pick kind of attack, the slash, okay, one attack, okay. Then eventually, though, we work up to where the attacks have to be dynamic. So there's plenty of video you can see of knife attacks. You'll see the person is stabbing multiple times usually. The most dangerous thing you can do is back away. If you back away, you're playing into the attacker's hands. I hear the thing all the time, well, just run away. Okay, well, again, I'm going to be 60 years old, and if the guy's 20 years old that's attacking me with a knife, now I'm going to have him stabbing me in the back because I'm not going to be able to outrun him at this point. So again, I love when self-defense experts say things like, well, just run away, all right? Yeah, what if you can't run away? What if the person pulls a knife on you in an elevator and now they decide to go to stab you with it? What if you're in a train car? And, what if you're on a bus? What if you're somewhere where you don't have the luxury? How about a plane? Right? We know what happened on 9/11, right? Okay. So you think if guys get up again and pull out knives on a plane, you think those passengers are just going to stand there anymore? No, they're going to attack. They're going to defend themselves because they know what's going to happen if they don't. So this idea of being able to run away is great if you can, but I'm going to go on the assumption that maybe you can't, all right? So what do we want to do? Well, we want to evade and control the hand that has the weapon, and we may want to attack the hand that has the weapon. So let's talk about a couple of things. If you come up against a trained knife fighter, okay, you've got a problem. But hopefully, most guys that are training in knife fighting, hopefully, have some virtue, as martial artists are supposed to, and hopefully you're not going to be coming up against one of those guys. But however, if you come up against a criminal who has actually stabbed people and he's gotten used to it, he's not going to hesitate to cut you, okay? What you hope to come up against the guy who likes to brandish the weapon and threaten you with it instead of immediately attacking. If he brandishes the weapon, okay, there's no reason for you to wait to attack him. You can attack the hand. Years ago, I was in Portland, Oregon, and I was doing a jiu-jitsu seminar, and they asked me to do some weapons defense. So I did knife. And I had a group of guys in there that were knife fighters. They taught our niece. And I gave one of them a wooden or rubber knife, and I said, attack. And of course, the first thing he said was, well, how? And my response was, any way you want. And as soon as he began to move, I lunged in, grabbed the hand, and took him out. And he got up with a big smile on his face and said to me, I never thought about that. I never thought about the idea of why do I have to wait for him to attack? So remember what I've talked about in the past. Criminals expect you to back up. And if you back up against the knife, you're going to be in big trouble. So you want to move in. And again, as soon as the person brandishes the knife, you want to lunge for the hand that has the knife. And you'd be surprised. A lot of times the criminal's brain will say, what the... Like, he doesn't know what's going on because what did he expect you to do? He didn't expect you to do that. He's got a knife, right? So you go in, you grab the hand that has the knife, the wrist that has the knife, and then from there, you have to figure out the technique that would work, right? So, and there's plenty of techniques. So you can, I've got techniques on the YouTube channel. There's plenty of people that show knife techniques, okay? So it's important to understand that. So you don't have to wait for him to attack. Okay? If he pulls the knife, you should be on him. If you're dealing with someone in a situation that you think is not going well and you think might turn physical, and the guy reaches in for a pocket, reaches for his waistband, you should immediately trap the hand. Immediately trap the hand, take him out. Okay, you're not going to... Why would you wait for him to pull the knife or the gun? Why would you wait? All right. Waiting is going to get you dead. Okay? So, in Sosuishiru Jiu-Jitsu, in the first set of kata, the first kata, the person who's attacking you tries to take your weapon, your short sword. So the school right off the bat is teaching you, okay, if you're going to carry a weapon, make sure you protect it. Don't let people take it off you. The eighth kata in the first set is the person is very close on you, very close, and they go to draw the sword. And you're taught to trap the weapon. So you trap the hand so that he can't draw the weapon out. And then you follow up with techniques to eliminate him. So forget the techniques they use. Okay, that's not important. What's important is it's teaching you two important combat tactics. Okay, so for myself, I almost always carry a firearm. I almost always carry a knife, okay? And I'm aware of where they are in my body, and I make sure that I don't put them in a position where someone can take them, okay? So that's important. I was in situations where someone tried to bring a weapon into play. I identify myself as a police officer, and, I could have been in plain clothes or uniform. It didn't make a difference. And as soon as I identify myself, that person makes a threatening move. They go to reach for a pocket. They go to reach for the waistband. I don't hesitate. Trap the hand. Take the person out. Okay? Again, I have a lot of training. I've been doing martial arts for 45 years. I have a lot of fighting experience. So, okay. I'm not recommending that for all police officers. You may have time to draw your weapon, and in that instance, maybe step back to create a little different distance. But keep in mind, if he brings that knife into play quick, he's going to be on you really, really fast. You may not have time to get your weapon out. Okay, so you want to train yourself that if you're close enough to the opponent, if you're close enough to the predator, and that predator makes a furtive move to his waistband, to a pocket, it's a good idea to trap the hand. Okay. In the one case, I had the guy reach into both his pockets with both his hands. I reached in, trapped both hands, right? Hit him, struck him with a knee kick, right? Trapped the hands, right? My partner came over, right? My partner reached in the I told the guy to release what he had. He let go. I took his hands out, right? My partner immediately reached in his pockets. He had a knife in each pocket. So he was literally had a knife in each pocket. So I guess he was going to be coming at me like this or whatever he planned on doing. I never gave him the chance. Okay? So keep these things in mind. You might say, Well, you'll never see a self-defense school work against a guy armed with 2 knives. Yeah, even in my own school, it's not something we train a lot, but every once in a while, I like to throw a wrench in the works, and I'll do that. I know the founder of Ishinru in his self-defense techniques that he used to teach the Marines before they left Okinawa to come back to the States. I know he had a defense against someone coming at him with 2 knives. So just interesting. We don't know why he had that, but he did, and he would show that. Okay. And sometimes he would show have the guys who were coming at him use sai, come at him with 2 sai, but he'd also use knives. Okay, and technique was very simple. All right, so if you have the opportunity, don't allow the weapon to be brought into play against you. Okay, another thing you must accept and realize is you're probably going to be cut. So accept it now. And don't think, well, oh my God, I'm going to get cut. Okay, getting cut's not the end of the world. Okay, I've been cut all over. I cut myself with comma one time, gave myself 10 stitches. As a kid, stitches over this eye, stitches over this eye, stitches all over the place. Okay, so, big cuts, so getting cut, getting stabbed does not mean you're going to die. All right, so you can't, if you get cut, you can't, go into a fetal position and say, oh my God, I'm finished. No. You still have a job to do, and that job is to stop the person that's cutting you. Okay? You have to finish him. Okay? Afterwards, apply direct pressure to wherever you're cut. Okay? Dial 911, get an ambulance there. Okay, right? If he's coming at you with the knife, obviously try to protect the more vital areas. Okay, getting cut on the arm or the hand, not the end of the world. I'll give you 2 examples. I responded to a call of a man stabbed. We got there. It was outside a club, and we got there. It was obviously the guy had been stabbed because his intestines were hanging outside of his body. So I literally look, and I see the guy's intestines hanging outside his body, and I said, all right, we have an ambulance, come and relax. And he's highly intoxicated, and he says to me, no, it's okay. My friend stabbed me. It's okay. And I look at him, I said, well, it's not okay because your intestines are hanging out, so we need to get you an ambulance here, and they need to fix you. Needless to say, that guy survived. Okay? Basically it was he cut the wall of the muscle, and that allowed the intestines to push out. Okay? So a small hole, the intestine was coming out. I'm sure he went to the hospital. They pushed his intestines back in, sewed him up, good to go. Survived. Okay? Here's the other one. Respond to a call of a man robbed. They get there. The guy is cut here. Now, I didn't respond to this one, but one of my senior black belts did. And he said it looked like the guy had a second mouth here. That's how wide the cut was. Now, this is what? This is a jugular, right? So you cut there, it's a problem, right? Because you're going to bleed out really quick. Well, he was cut there wide. He might have nicked the jugular. Obviously, they applied pressure right away. The guy survived. He survived. Okay? I can tell you numerous accounts of people being stabbed that we dealt with that survived, of people being shot we dealt with that survived. People fell from high falls, survived. Okay? So your mindset cannot be, well, oh my God, I'm cut, I'm finished. No, ignore it. Ignore the fact that you're cut. And you're going to have to work on this. This is a mindset you have to develop. You have to say, okay, I'm cut, but he's going to pay a price. So the rule in the dojo when I teach knife defense is take a cut, make them pay. Take a cut and make them pay. Okay? So if you have to take a cut, you take a cut. All right? Again, right? In New York, for the box cutter, when that was in vogue, you saw a lot of slashes here. So in the areas where I worked, you'd see a lot of people walking around with scars here and scars here. So immediately, if we were dealing with a criminal, he had scars here, scars here, it's a red flag, right? We say, okay, we know this guy's been cut. So what kind of a guy is he? Is he a victim of a crime? Or is he a guy who gets involved in things he shouldn't be involved in? And sometimes the person was just a victim. And other times they were not. They were criminals, okay? I would often get asked, well, why did it cut to the face? Because the face, you're just going to cut them. Well, it's the same reason why people punch to the face. the head is right there. We look at everybody's face, right? And, the person wants to punch you in it, right? That's usually where you're talking or whatever, right? Give him a look he doesn't like, whatever it is, right? And he's going to punch you in it. So it's the same thing. That target is right there. The head's right there. He's going to come in and slash you. Now, if you slashed up here, little more dangerous because the blood, you're going to bleed a lot. Anywhere in the head, you're going to bleed a lot. Don't panic. It's not the end of the world. But if you cut up here, that blood's going to come into the eyes. You're going to have to increase your work and get rid of the guy quickly, because you don't want your vision taken away. Once your vision's taken away, it's a huge problem. Okay? So, prepare that you might take a cut, accept you'll take a cut, and then make him pay for cutting you. Okay? You take the cut, you seize the knife, even if you have to grab the knife by the blade. Again, your hand gets cut, okay, it gets cut. They'll stitch you up, you'll be fine. Okay? You may grab the blade, you may grab his arm, you close in. What's the quickest counter? Maybe a headbutt. Smash him right in the face with your head. Now control that weapon. If you can control it well, maybe drive in some knee kicks. If you can manage to disarm him, then strike to the throat. Then, again, it gets into that gray area. You take the guy down on the floor. He still has the weapon in his hand. He won't give up the weapon. You're stomping, stomping, stomping. Now you kill him. Okay, well, he had the weapon in his hand. You were still struggling. He was attempting to use lethal force against you. You do a joint lock technique, or you snatch the knife. You manage to snatch it out of his hand. It's simple. Just grab it, and it comes out of his hand, and you throw it away. Now you drive him on the floor, and you keep stomping on his head until he's dead. Now we got a problem. Okay, now we got a problem. Training in my dojo, when we do knife defense, gun defense, club defense, baseball bat defense, chain defense, we go over everything. We spend the most time on knife and gun. Knife and gun, we do at least a couple of times a month. Sometimes more, depending on what's in my head and what I want people to work on. We cover everything. Knife to the throat, knife to the side of the throat. Knife on the center of the body, knife on the side of the body. We even do, a guy grabs you around the neck and puts the knife to here. Dangerous technique, but, there are techniques you can use, and it's better than nothing. Everything in terms of dealing with a guy armed with a weapon, better than nothing. Knife on the back, there's another thing we do, okay? So you say, well, how are you going to know if it's a knife? Well, what I train the students to do is, most people are right-handed. So what I do is I glance over my left shoulder, and I want to see his left hand. Now, if I glance over my left shoulder and I see there's nothing in his left hand, I assume there's something in his right hand. I don't care if it's a stick, his finger, a knife, a gun, it makes no difference, okay? Now I know, okay, there's nothing in his left hand. Now I can deal with the right hand. All right? I have techniques for going to the inside, techniques for going to the outside. Why do I have techniques for both? Because any instructor that tells you, well, you only go to the outside, doesn't know what he's talking about. Because let me break the news to you now. What can go wrong will go wrong in combat. Nerves, fear, all the adrenaline, your heartbeat going like this, especially if it's a weapon. And now you've trained 1,000,000 times to go to the outside. And guess what? You screw up and go to the inside. Okay, well, you can't stop and say to the guy, okay, hold on, time out. I've only practiced this technique going to the outside. So could you put the knife or the gun on my back again, and let's do that again? No. So you've got to have techniques for either or. All right? So, very important, okay? People say, well, why would a guy put a knife on your throat? The same reason he puts a gun on you. Okay, if he's looking to rob you, he wants to get in close, he's looking around, who's he looking for? He's looking for the police officer, right? He wants, give me the money. He wants to take the money and go, okay? So, same thing with on a body. And, if somebody says, well, why would they put the knife on your side? Okay, when I was 9 or 10 years old, I was robbed by 3 guys. Initially, they put the knife to my throat, they had it on the center of my body, and then they put it on the side of my body. So the answer is, don't assume anything, okay? As far as attacks goes, you have to work against a lunge, a slash, ice pick attack, okay? Have to do it, all right? Reverse slash, any way you can think of that a guy can come at you. Initially, you can work static. Then eventually, the attack has to be like this. And you have to train where when this is coming in, you actually are moving in on the opponent. And if you can seize his wrist, great. If you parry to the outside and now you go to do a wrist lock, as soon as if he's doing this, as soon as you go to grab, his natural instinct is to pull the knife back. I love when I see karate guys practice, or anybody doing knife defense, where the guy stabs and the guy goes to the outside and he does the technique, right? And when he does the technique, right, he goes to the outside and the guy just stays there. Okay, when you grab somebody, their natural instinct is to try to pull away. So what you have to do is train yourself that when you parry, if you parry and get your hand on the outside, when he pulls back, you have to train that you're relaxed enough that you go back with him. As he pulls back, you move in with him. You move in and squeeze out the space, and then apply whatever technique is applicable for you at that time. And I can't tell you what technique because I don't know. Because he may pull his arm to the outside, he may pull his arm across, he may pull his arm straight back, and you're going to have to make an adjustment. Okay? Any instructor that says this knife technique works every time, I can't take them serious. There's no technique that works every time. No technique, okay? There were techniques I learned in karate, in the kata, specifically a type of kick, that when I learned it, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, but I could never see myself using that technique in combat. I used it twice. And the first time I used it, I shocked myself, but it was right there. I didn't hesitate, I just did it. And then the second time I used it, it was the same exact situation. And I said to myself, well, if it worked the first time, it'll probably work the second time. Sure enough, it did. Okay? It did. All right? So, work different techniques, and then the way you work them needs to change. So, at some point, it's got to be both people moving around, and the guy tries to stab. They've got all kinds of devices. They've got the knives that have the felt around it that you can put chalk on it. Again, if you're wearing a karate gi, the stuff stains, so you might want to just wear a t-shirt. Out here in Arizona in the summer, even though I have air conditioning, we still wear t-shirts because it still gets hot. So we wear t-shirts. Again, got to be honest with yourself. If the person's getting you, okay, and then you got to figure out why he's getting you. If you're backing up, I'm telling you now, you're going to be in trouble. So you got to train yourself to move in. And against a bladed weapon moving in, everything in your brain and your body is going to scream, get away, get away, get away, and you can't. You have to move in. Have to move in. Okay? If you get cut in an artery, you should know how to do a tourniquet. If you wear a belt, you can use a belt to apply a tourniquet. Okay? I know a lot of young people don't wear belts anymore. All right, but it's good to have one. You can use it for a lot of different things. I'll give you another thing. If the guy pulls a knife and is threatening with you, you can use your belt as a weapon. All right. One of the techniques you can do is take your belt off and take the leather end, the buckle end, flick it at his face. I could tell you now, if I flick that at your face and I hit you in the face, I'm going to get your attention. I could even attack your hand with the belt. Okay. I can take change from my pocket. I can throw it in his face. When he does that, I go in and I attack the weapon. Go in, grab the hand. Okay? You could, whatever you have on you, you can use. I could throw my glasses, whatever, right? You could spit. Okay? So that's another thing we work on. We usually use our karate belts, and work on actually flicking it at the guy's face. And, every once in a while there's a mistake and someone gets hit in the face. And believe me, when they get hit in the face with that belt, they say afterwards, that did not tickle. So again, you're aiming for the eye. In the class, we normally aim for the lower face, so there's no mistakes, okay? And when you do it, when the guy flinches, we go right in after the hand. Right in after the hand, okay? And seize the weapon, all right? Not easy techniques to work, but very effective, okay? Again, I do teach simple knife fighting in my dojo, whether it be in the Ishinryu class, the Jiu-Jitsu class, or some of the other classes. The reason I teach knife defense, I'll be brutally honest, I had studied some knife fighting. I'm by no means an expert, but I studied knife fighting, and after 9/11, when I saw those guys used weapons, bladed weapons, I said, well, I want my students to have a general idea of how to use a knife if they have to use it. So now what if you got one guy who's got the knife on you, but there's three guys? And now you disarm him and now you have the knife in your hand. All right? I want you to know how to use it. I want you to know how to best to use it to cut the opponent, to defend yourself. Because again, if it's you against three adversaries and you have the knife, that's reasonable. That's reasonable. Okay? People would say, boy, if I was fighting three guys, I wish I had a weapon. So that's understandable. Okay? So it might be a good idea to do some simple knife fighting techniques. And I know people say, well, that's not Ishinru. I totally agree it's not Ishinru. However, self-defense is self-defense. And I hate to break the news to everyone, but self-defense is universal. So if you're doing Tai Chi, right? If you're doing Jiu-Jitsu, if you're doing Eskrima, if you're doing Aikido, if you're doing Karate, if you're doing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, if you're doing boxing, and you want to work self-defense, well, then you better practice against the attacks that people are going to use out there. So I'll give you an example. The other night in the Tai Chi class, I did defense against a bear hug. I pulled the technique out of the Tai Chi form, and I used that against a bear hug. And the people in the Tai Chi class were surprised. Why? Because they had never done that before. Again, I like to keep my classes interesting. I like to keep people guessing and not let them know what's going on. Recommend you try to see some video of people doing actual attacks with a knife. There's plenty of them out there. You can see them. An old video that's, it's outdated now, but it's still a great video, has a lot of really good information in it, especially for law enforcement, is Surviving Edged Weapons. They interview a lot of police officers that were seriously injured against knives. It's interesting to hear their stories. So Surviving Edged Weapons, I'm not sure if you can still get it, but you can look into it. Again, you have to figure it out. You have to try different things. And you have to try working on knife defense with a little resistance. Now, again, within the dojo, you cannot reproduce combat. Any instructor that tells me, well, we do it exactly like combat, utter nonsense. Utter nonsense. You can't reproduce combat in a dojo. So what you got to do is you got to, go up to that line. And where that line is going to depend on the two people at a training. Well, how far do we want to go? How much resistance do we want to do? And if two guys decide, listen, I want to go pretty hard. Okay, and if one of us gets a little banged up, as long as you're all right with it, I'm all right with it, let's really try it and try to figure this out. And that's okay, right? But, you can't be doing that all the time. Most people have jobs, they have to go to work. So you want to do that training in a way where you push the envelope without tearing it, okay? And, so in closing, can't just work static. Got to work defending a guy coming at you like that, and you got to figure out how to defend against it, okay? If a guy is threatening with the knife, don't hesitate. Attack him right away. Attack him. That's not what he expected you to do, okay? Figure out techniques once you attack him, what you can do, all right? And they have to be outside the box. Don't think, karate kicks and punches, you might have to headbutt. You might have to do something else. To disarm him, you might have to bite the hand to make him let go of the weapon. In training in the dojo, and I'll leave you with this final thing, no one is ever allowed to leave the attacker with the weapon in their hand. So in training, you have to finish with the weapon in your hand. You cannot, all right? Keep in mind, you do a hard joint lock, okay? The weapon's going to go flying. Not always, but a lot of times it will. We're not doing them as hard as we would in real life in the dojo. I know this from experience, okay? The first time I disarmed a guy armed with a weapon, he was armed with a sharpened nail file between his fingers, and he was about to punch a guy in the face with it. And when he reared back, he didn't see me behind him. I was already a police officer. I grabbed him, did a reverse kotagaeshi on him. The weapon went flying, and then I handcuffed him, okay? So keep that in mind also. Because the weapon goes flying. If there's more opponents, you got to be who's grabbing that weapon. All right? Hope you've enjoyed it. I'm sure there'll be a lot of comments on this one. Feel free to comment. If you're enjoying the podcast, please like, share, subscribe, let people know about it. It helps a lot. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day. Thanks.